What's up, guys? CJ here, and welcome back to another all-new episode of Hybrid TV, where we break down all the big news going down on the small screen. I'm joined, as always, by Tim.
How's it going, everyone?
And Will.
This episode is brought to you by the law offices of Anthony, Hank, and Scott.
That's true. We steal shit for you. We'll steal this case right out from under them. Something. We're still workshopping it. It's a work in progress. Star Wars Resistance, an all-new animated series, has officially been announced. If you'll remember, we covered this a couple months back when early rumors suggested that it might have been a possibility because Disney and Lucasfilm had registered some web domains and some other trademarks. They had filed some stuff for Star Wars Resistance. And now it's officially been confirmed. And this has an interesting twist. This is kind of the follow-up series in the vein of, like, Rebels being a spiritual successor to Clone Wars. Resistance is going to be the spiritual successor to Rebels, as the name kind of hints. But it has an interesting twist. It is still Dave Filoni, but this one is going to be an anime-inspired series following Kazuda Giono, a young pilot recruited by the Resistance, with a top-secret mission to spy on the growing First Order threat. So, very, very interesting. It is going to be set in the sequel trilogy. It's going to feature BB-8, ace pilots, tons of new characters, and appearances by, folks like Poe Dameron, Captain Phasma, and they will be voiced by the actual actors themselves, Oscar Isaac and Gwendolyn Christie. So it is, of course, as I said, going to be Dave Filoni, and the cast is actually really incredible.
Yeah.
Christopher Sean, Susie McGrath, Scott Lawrence, Myrna Velasco, Josh Brenner, Donald Faison from Scrubs, Faison, Jim Rash from Community, Bobby Moynihan from DuckTales, and Rachel Butera. And of course, as you probably know, we're probably going to see some of the characters from Star Wars Rebels show up at some point. Although that's not been confirmed.
I think it's Donald Faison.
Faison? Well, I love him
Faison,
so much.
Yeah.
Hey, that's dad for me. That's my guy. What do you guys
Papa Don.
make of this series? I think we were all kind of expecting something like this as soon as the trademarks were filed, but the anime-inspired thing is what I'm really, really kind of curious.
Yeah, I'm more interested.
Yeah.
Like, even beyond the anime-inspired thing, it's interesting that they're going from 2 CG series to, based on the image they show, going to 2D.
Well, so what's interesting here is they showed the logo for Star Wars Resistance, and if you look at the shading on BB-8, it almost looks like it might be something like Code Lyoko style. Because I'm looking at the way that he's kind of... Because you can see it is, like, obviously it's 2D, it's flat, but it is shaded in a way that kind of gives it this perspective, like, almost like cell-shaded, almost.
Yeah.
So I am kind of going to be interested to see how they handle that, but...
From now on, we'll call cell shading Code Lyoko style.
Code Lyoko style.
Advented by the French, of all.
Oh, yeah.
Code Lyoko style.
Wow, that was a throwback.
Yep. That's no longer the most viewed video on YouTube. This podcast is going to be, but so Dave Filoni did comment on this. He said, the idea for Star Wars Resistance came out of my interest in World War II aircraft and fighter pilots. My grandfather was a pilot. My uncle flew in restored planes, so that's been a big influence on me. There's a long history of high-speed racing in Star Wars, and I think we've captured that sense of excitement in an anime-inspired style, which is something the entire team has been wanting to do for a long time. So it's really interesting. I think I'm kind of getting a sense like somebody going to spy on the First Order and talking about his interest in World War II. Kind of reminds me of the Flying Tigers, which was a mission in World War II to help the Chinese behind enemy lines. Potentially going to be something like that. I'm really interested in this. What are your guys' thoughts?
I like the concept, and I like the fact that they're changing up a bit from the CG style. It looks... I think you can do more in terms of like dynamic animation with this, because I know personally one of the reasons I really didn't get into Rebels, despite me, one, not really watching Clone Wars, but two, I really did not like what they did with that with the animation style. And I know it was inspired by like the concept art, but it just did not work for me. Like I know that they tried to go with like thin lightsabers, which just looks weird. I'm sorry. They look weird.
Well,
They're trying to do old school lightsabers.
Yeah,
from,
like
the
McQuarrie.
They were
the original trilogy,
and it just did not translate well to animation.
What's kind of it's kind of interesting to me that they've taken a different approach. Like each series, they've tried to make them visually kind of unique. Like the first Clone Wars was its own thing, and then for Rebels, they were like, let's try and root it in the Chris McQuarrie concept art, and then like going back to before A New Hope was even a thing. And then for this series, they're going to do kind of an anime inspired, which is really interesting because I thought The Last Jedi had a lot of big Japanese influences in terms of its visuals.
right?
And I wonder if that might have been a little bit of an inspiration for them. That's going to do it for this episode, though, guys. Thanks so much for watching. If you have a question you'd like to see answered on the show, just drop us a line in the comment section down below wherever you happen to be listening, whether it's YouTube or SoundCloud, and use the hashtag AskHybridTV, and we more than likely are going to answer your question on the air. Tim, Will, where can the people find you on social media?
They can find me on Twitter at Aussie Dragoon.
They can find me on my own YouTube channel at Will the Greatest.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. This has been Hybrid TV number 26. We'll see you next week.